was the kind of Monday you forget by Tuesday. Locker doors slamming, the low hum of tired announcements, a long hallway filled with noise but no real attention paid. She had only been at Westbrook Academy for 3 weeks. No one knew where she came from. No one cared to ask. She kept to herself, wore the same faded skirt, carried second-hand books, walked like she didn't want to be seen. But in schools like Westbrook, where the children of CEOs and senators roam polished halls, you don't get to go unseen forever, especially if you don't fit. That morning, Haley Sinclair was on her way to third period biology. She didn't see it coming. Tyler Hastings, varsity athlete, legacy student, the kind of kid whose last name came with donations, was waiting. He didn't shout, he didn't threaten. He just smiled, leaned in, and with one loud, violent tug, ripped the back of her shirt open in front of everyone. The hallway fell silent, except for a few laughs, but Haley didn't cry. She didn't run. She turned, slowly, like she was choosing her moment. And then, in front of the entire junior class, she grabbed Tyler's wrist, stepped to the side, and threw him hard over her shoulder. His body hit the floor like dropped furniture. Phones were already recording. Teachers came running. But that moment, that exact second in time, didn't just go viral. It tore a hole in everything the school thought it protected, because Haley wasn't just another quiet girl. She was something else entirely. And the story of how she ended up there, what she'd been through, and what she uncovered afterward, none of it should have been possible. But it was. And what she revealed next would silence an entire school board. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. If you fight for justice and you think the bullies had no right to humiliate the girl, hit the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. But if you think they had every right to humiliate her without cause, comment your thoughts below. And don't forget to share the video to those who also fight for justice. I ain't never seen silence like that before. Not in a school hallway. Not in a place where noise is supposed to be normal. When she threw him, I swear to you, time folded in on itself. Phones dropped, jaws hung, even the teachers froze like statues. But I wasn't looking at Tyler when he hit the floor. I was looking at Haley, and she didn't flinch, didn't run. She just stood there, back still exposed, fabric torn wide, like she was done hiding. And that look in her eyes, that wasn't pride. It wasn't fear either. It was something else, like a storm had passed through her and now the wind had gone still. And in that stillness, all I could think was, who is this girl? Because Westmont Academy ain't the kind of place you just walk into if you ain't got money, bloodline, or a name on a library wing. It's the kind of school where the halls shine more than the students do, where secrets get scrubbed clean before they ever reach the principal's desk, where a kid like Tyler Hastings doesn't just walk away from trouble, he laughs at it, because trouble never lands on boys like him. Not here. So what made Haley different? Why her? Why that day? Why that hallway? Why tear her shirt when he could have chosen anyone? And more than that, what did she know? See, Tyler wasn't just any bully. His daddy sat on the board. His mama led the fundraising gala. And every time he got caught messing with someone smaller, poorer, quieter, it got buried. Every time. Teachers knew better than to report him. Parents complained, sure, but not for long. Threats got made. Scholarships got reevaluated. And slowly, the voices disappeared. But Haley, she didn't disappear. She showed up. And after that throw, after Tyler's pride hit the floor harder than his back, things started moving. Quiet conversations behind closed doors. One of the counselors suddenly took leave. A teacher got reassigned. But nobody was talking, not out loud. And still, nobody knew who Haley really was. No family name on the donor wall. No fancy car in the parking lot. No father shaking hands at the alumni brunch. Just a transfer form and a file that didn't add up. So the questions kept piling. Who really runs Westmont Academy? Why had Tyler never faced a single consequence? Until now. And what secret did Haley bring with her that had even the teachers afraid to speak? Because this wasn't just about a shirt being torn. This wasn't about a hallway fight gone viral. This was about something bigger, something buried, something that someone, maybe a whole group of someones, wanted to stay buried. And what I didn't know back then, what none of us knew, was that Haley hadn't just come to Westmont to get an education. She came with a purpose. She came with proof. And when she pulled that boy down in front of everyone, that was just the beginning. Haley was quiet. I remember that. Not shy, quiet. Like she had learned early on that silence wasn't weakness, it was protection. She was the kind of girl who walked with her eyes low, sat in the back of the room without ever fading in, wore her brother's old sneakers and still kept them clean. The kind of girl who said thank you when somebody bumped into her. Not because she was soft, but because she knew how to pick her battles. And I think maybe that's what made her dangerous. See? This school? Westmont Academy? It ain't built for girls like Haley. It's built to polish diamonds that were already handed down in velvet boxes, built to protect the boys who come in knowing the world gon' give them a second chance before they ever mess up the first time. Kids here? They pull up in Audis, got gold initials on their backpacks. They order food from their phones while the rest of us stand in line with brown paper bags. But Haley? She didn't complain. Never once. She just showed up, first day of sophomore year, with her books clutched tight, her braid pinned down neat, and a schedule folded 6 times from reading it too much. Nobody knew her name, not yet, just the new girl, black girl, the one who got in on a scholarship. That's how they said it too. Oh, her? Yeah, she's scholarship. Like it was a disease, like she owed somebody something for just being allowed to learn. But what they didn't know is Haley wasn't new to being underestimated. She had come from a part of town where streetlights flickered, where rent got paid in pieces and dinner wasn't always promised. But respect always was. Her mama, Miss Denise, worked night shifts at the hospital and still packed her daughter's lunch every morning. And before he passed, her daddy, Sergeant Marcus Sinclair, had taught Haley how to fall without fear, how to flip a grown man using only balance and breath. Haley had been practicing judo since she was 10 years old, every Saturday morning, every summer evening. Quiet, consistent, in a community gym with scuffed floors and cracked mirrors. She'd never bragged about it, never needed to. That was her father's rule. You don't train to impress, you train to survive. But survival don't always look the same in every place. At Westmont, survival meant shrinking yourself just enough to fit, speaking only when spoken to, laughing at jokes that weren't funny, letting little insults slide off your back like water. But when water hits you every day, eventually, it sinks in. That first week, the boys noticed her. Not in the way boys notice girls. More like how lions watch a deer limping in a new field. Tyler Hastings was the first. He always was. Rich, tall, light-skinned with wavy hair, the kind of smile that adults found charming and kids found dangerous. His daddy owned half the real estate behind the football stadium. His mama sat on the board with a permanent wine glass in her hand. Tyler never walked. He strolled, always 2 steps ahead of trouble because trouble was afraid of who would clean up his mess. Then came Marcus Penn, football captain, broad shoulders, quick laugh, slower brain. He wasn't the kind to start something, but he'd follow Tyler into a burning building if it meant he'd stay popular. And then there was Bradley Shaw, the quiet one, the one with the phone. He didn't talk much, but he recorded everything, kept folders, edited clips, sent them out anonymously. He was the kind who smiled while you drowned. They spotted Haley on her second day, caught her walking out the cafeteria carrying her tray like it was borrowed. Tyler bumped her. Chicken spilled. She apologized. Marcus laughed. Bradley recorded. The video hit Snapchat before she even made it to math class. Caption read, "Oops, didn't know the help was allowed to eat here." Nobody stopped them. Nobody ever did. They thought she'd cry, thought she'd crumble. But she didn't. She just cleaned her tray, stared at him once, then walked away. That was the first mistake they made, thinking her silence was surrender. By Friday, they tested her twice more, threw her backpack in the girls' locker room sink, spilled water on her homework, pushed her once in the hallway while the teacher didn't see it. They kept poking at her like she was a door they were trying to force open, and she just kept walking, kept folding her hurt into smaller and smaller spaces inside herself. But even the strongest doors break if you push hard enough. That Monday, everything shifted. It was third period, hallway between science and history. Most students were already in class, just enough stragglers to make an audience. Tyler waited near the vending machine, saw her coming. Marcus leaned against the lockers, trying to look casual. Bradley stood off to the side, phone ready, smirk ready. Haley walked in alone. She passed them like they were ghosts. But Tyler, he wasn't going to let her go easy this time. He grabbed the back of her hoodie, pulled hard. Her shirt ripped, fabric tore right down the middle, her whole back exposed. Laughter, whistles, a phone click. And in that 1 second, something inside her snapped. It wasn't rage, wasn't fear either. It was clarity. She dropped her bag, planted her feet, grabbed his wrist. And just like her father taught her years ago on those cracked mats, she shifted her balance, pulled, turned. And Tyler Hastings, rich boy, untouchable prince of Westmont Academy, hit the hallway floor so hard it echoed. Silence, phone still, eyes wide. And Haley stood there, chest rising, hands steady. She didn't run, didn't cry. She just picked up her bag and walked. Now, I've been in that school long enough to know. Ain't nobody seen anything like that before, not here, not from someone like her. It was supposed to be the moment they humiliated her. But instead, it was the moment she humiliated them. And that was just the beginning. Because Haley Sinclair, she didn't just flip a boy, she flipped a system. And what none of us realized back then was that her transfer to Westmont wasn't by accident. It was by design. She had come to that school with a file, a folder, a name, and what was inside would change everything. I still remember the morning it happened, like the memory never aged. It sits in my chest like a scar that never quite closed. And even now, years later, it still aches in the quiet. See, by day 5, something had shifted in the air around Haley. The bullies? They'd gotten bolder, louder, crueler. But she got quieter, not smaller, just stiller, like the ocean right before a storm. She moved like she was waiting, like she knew something was coming. And maybe, deep down, she'd already decided she wasn't going to run from it. They were pushing her hard by then, tripping her in the lunch line, stuffing notes in her locker that said things I wouldn't repeat to no living soul. One morning, they even smeared ketchup on her chair and made it look like she'd had an accident. Whole class laughed. Teacher didn't say a word. But the thing that got me most was how she carried herself through it. No tears, no outbursts. Just this calm that felt unnatural. Like the pain had burned so long she didn't feel it no more. She'd sit with her hands folded, eyes forward, like she was hearing something the rest of us couldn't. And maybe she was. The day it happened, the sun was shining through the stained glass windows of the science wing. We had just come out of chemistry. Bell had rung late. People were lingering, laughing, scrolling, shoving lockers shut. The floor smelled like bleach and pencil shavings. I saw her, standing alone near the stairwell, flipping through her binder. Calm. Still. And then Tyler showed up. I ain't never liked the way he moved. Even when he smiled, you could feel something cold underneath. He came up behind her with that same cocky lean, flanked by Marcus and Bradley, and this time, he had something in his hand. Scissors. At first I thought it was a prank. Maybe he was just trying to scare her. But that boy didn't hesitate. He reached out and cut. One long, careless swipe right down the middle of her shirt. Fabric split open at the back. You could hear the slice. She froze. Her shoulders stiffened like her whole body was catching its breath. And the hallway? It erupted. Laughter, shouting. Someone dropped their phone from laughing too hard. The sound bounced off the lockers like gunfire. And Tyler just stood there, proud of himself, holding those scissors like a trophy. But Haley, she didn't cry. She didn't scream. She turned around slow, like time had thickened. Her eyes locked on him, not like a scared girl, but like someone who had just decided enough. And before I could blink, before I could even make sense of what I was seeing, she moved. One step forward, pivot, grab, twist. And Tyler's body lifted off the floor like it didn't weigh a thing. His back hit the tiles with a sound that cut through the noise. Phones dropped. Mouths opened. It was like time stopped to watch. I swear, even the walls went quiet. And then she stood over him. Not gloating, not angry, just breathing, steady, focused. That was the first time I saw fear on Tyler's face. He tried to sit up. Couldn't. Bradley backed away, eyes wide. Marcus froze like he'd forgotten how legs worked. And Haley? She picked up her torn backpack, slung it over one shoulder, and walked. Just walked. No words. No tears. Just grace. Like she had been waiting her whole life for that moment. But it wasn't over. Phones were already out. Videos hit Snapchat in seconds. You could hear people screaming from the second floor. Teachers rushed in, but nobody laid a hand on her. They were too stunned. It wasn't just a fight. It was a shift in power. A correction. Like the truth had finally stood up and refused to bow, Principal Abernathy was called to the hallway. Her face looked like someone had shattered her perfect world. Security got there next. Then the nurse. Then the counselor. Nobody knew what to say. And then, they locked the school down. Every door closed. Every student told to stay put. They even called emergency meetings for faculty. It wasn't just about the fight. No. It was about what came after. It was about the image. The video. The lawsuit they could feel forming before their eyes. A scholarship student flipping the board chair's son in front of half the junior class? That wasn't just a hallway fight. That was a scandal. But the part that still haunts me, it's what happened when Tyler's daddy arrived. I was sitting outside the main office, watching through the glass. He didn't run in, didn't yell, just walked in calm, like he'd been there before. Expensive suit, Rolex. No panic in his eyes, just calculation. And he didn't ask to see his son, didn't ask for the principal. He asked for his lawyer, didn't even blink. Because see, some people don't prepare for justice. They prepare for control. And right then, I knew. This wasn't over. This wasn't just about Haley throwing a boy. This was about keeping her quiet. And the war? It had only just begun. That night, the video exploded. I remember sitting at home, scrolling my phone like always, and there it was. Front and center. Haley, Tyler, that hallway, the throw. It was everywhere. People weren't just talking, they were reacting. Comment sections flooded with fire. Some folks were praising her for standing up. Others were already trying to tear her down. By morning, the headline was plastered across the local news. Scholarship girl flips bully in hallway assault. They made it sound like she came looking for a fight. They never mentioned the scissors. They never showed how her shirt was sliced open. They never said a word about how long Tyler and his crew had been coming for her, day after day, while teachers stood by like statues and the system stayed silent. And that's when I realized, this school wasn't just protecting him. They were protecting themselves. First thing Monday, the principal sent out an emergency statement. We are investigating the matter thoroughly, and disciplinary action is being considered for both parties involved. Both parties. That phrase cut deep. Because in a place like Westmont Academy, discipline don't hit everyone the same. Not when your mama's a nurse, not a donor. Not when your backpack's stitched, not monogrammed. They tried to suspend her. They called it temporary removal for safety reasons. But the truth? They wanted her gone before she could speak. Before that video started raising questions they weren't ready to answer. And that's when the parents got involved. Now I'd seen parent-teacher meetings before. Stiff chairs, fake smiles, free cookies, nobody touched. But this was war. Haley's mom showed up like fire. I don't know what word she used behind them doors, but I know the effect. The next day something shifted. A few teachers stopped looking down when Haley passed in the hall. A counselor quietly apologized. And then, the real break came. One teacher, older woman, had been at Westmont longer than most the buildings, slipped Haley's mom a folder. No words, just a file. Inside, copies of incident reports, handwritten notes, things that had never seen daylight. Turns out, Tyler had done this before, more than once. Girls, younger than Haley. One had a bruise on her ribs, another left the school mid-semester. Every case resolved internally. No police, no hearings, no record. All swept under the rug like dust nobody wanted to see. I remember sitting on the edge of my bed, holding my phone, reading the screenshots as they started to leak. It was like someone opened a floodgate on everything we thought we knew. There was anger, shame, fear. But mostly, it was disbelief that something this wrong had been allowed to keep happening again and again, just because the right hands signed the checks. The school tried to deny it, said the files were taken out of context, said Tyler was under stress. But the more they spoke, the more the truth poured out. Old videos started surfacing, ones nobody was supposed to see. Tyler pushing a girl into a locker, another clip of him ripping up someone's homework and laughing in their face. A video of Marcus pouring water over a shy kid's head, while Bradley filmed and cheered him on. And the worst part? Most of it happened inside the school, under security cameras, under the same adults who claimed they never saw anything. One girl came forward anonymously, said she reported Tyler 2 years ago. Nothing was done, no call home, no write-up, just a quiet sit-down and a warning that rocking the boat could mess with her college chances. And now a whisper had started to spread, one that made the whole school hold its breath. Someone up top has been protecting him. No name at first, just a rumor, a chill in the air, a tension you could feel in the teacher's silence and the board's careful emails. But when enough people start asking the same question, silence starts to sound a lot like guilt. It wasn't just about one bully anymore. It was about the cracks in the walls of a place that prided itself on perfection. It was about what they let happen when they thought nobody would stand up. And now that Haley had, they were scrambling. The students were watching. Parents were furious. Reporters were circling like vultures. And Haley? She walked through it all with the same calm she had that day in the hallway. But something in her had changed. There was a fire in her eyes now. Not revenge, not pride, just purpose. She'd spent years learning to hold herself back. Now the world was asking what else she knew. Because when you throw one rich boy in a hallway, you might just flip a whole system on its head. And the question on everybody's lips? What else had they tried to hide? I remember the courtroom wasn't like what you see on TV. No flashing lights, no shouting matches. Just cold air, wooden benches, and faces that didn't blink much. But you could feel the tension pressing down from the walls, like the room itself had been holding its breath for too long. It wasn't just about Haley anymore. It was about every kid who'd ever been told to let it go, every parent who trusted the system, every teacher who saw and said nothing. Haley sat quiet, her mother beside her, hand on her back like an anchor. Her uniform was clean, her shoes polished. But the bruise behind her dignity, that don't fade easy. They called her Judo instructor to the stand. I hadn't seen that man before, but when he spoke, he didn't talk like a lawyer. He talked like someone who knew Haley better than most ever tried to. He said she'd been training since she was 10, said she was disciplined, said her father taught her judo as a way of understanding her own strength, not unleashing it on others. He made it clear, Haley wasn't someone who attacked. She responded. She protected herself. And that hallway moment, That wasn't rage. That was control. Measured. Intentional. The opposite of everything they were trying to say about her. The room was quiet after that. Then the school board's attorney tried to shift it all back. Said the incident was unfortunate. Called it an emotional lapse. Tried to paint Tyler as just a boy who made a mistake. They said Haley had overreacted. Said the environment at school was safe. Said the administration had handled past issues properly. But something in their voice cracked. That fake smoothness. It had started to break down. Because the truth was getting too loud to drown. And then came the janitor. Now, nobody expected him to speak. He was one of those faces you pass in the hallway every day, nod polite, keep walking. But that man, he'd been watching. He'd seen things, cleaned things, heard things, and that day, he stepped forward like he'd carried the weight long enough. He pulled a USB stick from his pocket, said it was backup footage the school had tried to delete, and what played next changed everything. It showed Tyler and his boys, Marcus Bradley, crowded around a locker days before the hallway attack, laughing, whispering. Then it cut to Tyler standing outside the science wing door, scissors in hand, moments before the crowd gathered. You could see him motioning, setting the stage, planning it like a show. Then came the older clips, different faces, other students shoved, cornered, mocked, girls crying in stairwells, a small kid with a broken phone, and standing close in most of them was the assistant principal, sometimes walking by, sometimes pausing, always turning away. That courtroom froze. You could feel the air shift. I looked at the judge's face. Even she looked stunned. No more talk of emotional lapses. No more boys being boys. The room had seen what silence had protected. And just like that, the school's wall of silence cracked wide open. Tyler Hastings was expelled on the spot. Not transferred. Not placed on leave. Expelled. 2 staff members, one being that assistant principal, resigned quietly the same week. They didn't even hold a press conference, just packed up their offices and disappeared like they'd never been there. And Haley's family? They reached a settlement. Nobody said how much. No big announcements. But those who knew it wasn't just about money. It was about acknowledgement, about a system finally being forced to say, "We failed you." But here's the part nobody wrote about. That USB stick? It wasn't just video, it had emails too. Screenshots of complaints from parents and students. Internal memos saying, "Let's keep this in-house." Notes from board members talking about protecting the school's image. It showed how deep the cover-up went. How many hands had passed the blame around like it was hot coal. How many people had chosen reputation over responsibility. Haley didn't smile when they read the verdict. She didn't cry either. She just sat there, straight-backed, eyes forward, like she'd been carrying the weight of that moment for years. And maybe, in a way, she had. She never wanted fame. She didn't ask to be the face of anything. All she wanted was to learn in peace, to walk a hallway without fear, to wear her shirt without shame. But the world had other plans. And now that the truth had been dragged into the light, blinking and exposed, folks had to make a choice. Stay comfortable or confront what they'd let stand for too long. I still remember the way her voice shook, just a little, when she stepped in front of that microphone outside the courthouse. It wasn't fear, it wasn't nerves, it was something heavier. Like her words had been sitting in her chest for too long, waiting for the right moment to be set free. She didn't give a speech. She gave truth. Said she never wanted to hurt nobody. Said she only wanted it to stop. That was all. And the silence that followed was louder than applause. You see, Haley's story was supposed to end there. Court done, settlement signed. Move on, forget. But it didn't end. It spread. First it was whispers in local schools, other girls, other boys stepping forward saying, "It happened to me too." Then it was videos, students recording testimonies, teachers sharing regrets, parents questioning why they'd kept quiet. Haley had cracked something open and now the air smelled different, like truth had finally gotten some oxygen. Her face was on the evening news now, but she didn't look like a hero. She looked tired, like someone who'd been dragged through the mud but still stood tall with dirt on her shoes. She didn't smile for the cameras. She just kept walking. But what none of us expected was what happened next. A few weeks after the verdict, an envelope showed up at her door. No return address. Just a name scribbled at the bottom of the letter inside. I never saw the exact words, but I saw Haley's hands tremble as she read it. Saw the way her eyes filled with something between relief and sorrow. The letter was from a girl who'd left Westmont 2 years before, one of Tyler's earlier victims. She'd dropped out after what he did. Nobody believed her. Or worse, they made her feel like it was her fault. But she'd seen Haley's story in the news. She wrote, "Thank you for doing what I couldn't. You were brave when I was broken." Haley folded that letter slow, like it was something sacred. And maybe it was. Because in that moment, she wasn't just a girl who flipped a bully. She was a mirror, a voice for the unheard, proof that standing up, even when your knees shake, means something. Then, just when the dust seemed to settle, another crack opened. News broke that Tyler's father, the same man who called his lawyer before even asking if his son had hurt someone, was under investigation. Bribery, school board contracts, hidden payouts to silence complaints. Turns out he hadn't just been protecting his son, he'd been protecting himself. That mask of wealth and influence, it shattered, fast. And just like that, the whole system that once turned its back on Haley started turning on itself. And Westmont? Well, it changed. Policies rewritten, staff replaced, a new student committee formed to handle complaints. They even renamed the science wing hallway. But Haley, she didn't stay. She finished the year elsewhere, quietly. No interviews, no spotlight. But the story never stopped following her. Not because she chased it, but because the world needed it. I heard a reporter ask once, "What's next for Haley Sinclair?" But I think that question misses the point, because Haley never wanted to be a symbol. She just wanted to be seen, to walk down a hallway without holding her breath, to exist without being tested. And maybe that's the tragedy, and the triumph, all at once. She walked into Westmont invisible. She walked out unshaken. And now, they'll never forget her name. Not because she shouted, but because when the world tried to break her, she stood. And somewhere, maybe in a classroom, or behind a locker door, or in the backseat of a school bus, some other kid who's scared and quiet and tired of being small hears her story. And they realize they ain't alone. And that's the real legacy. You know, it's funny how the moments that change everything don't feel big when they happen. They don't come with warning signs or fireworks. Sometimes they just feel like survival, like holding your breath long enough to make it through the hallway, like walking home with your shirt torn and your pride still intact. I still think about Haley, not the news version of her, not the girl in headlines. I mean the real Haley, the one who sat alone at lunch with a paperback book and worn-out sneakers, the one who'd flinch when laughter got too loud, the one who had power she never bragged about, never even mentioned. And I think about how none of it should have happened, how the grown-ups who were supposed to protect her failed her, how the system only moved because she pushed it. And I ask myself, what would have happened if she didn't know judo? If she hadn't trained quietly in that dusty rec center for years while the world ignored her? Would they still believe her? Would her story ever be heard? Would we even be talking about her at all? See? That's what haunts me. Because Haley didn't just survive something cruel. She exposed something rotten, and she did it without ever meaning to. She just wanted peace. But peace don't come easy when you're the kind of girl this world tries to keep small. The kind of girl who gets called angry when she speaks and invisible when she's silent. She wasn't trying to start a movement, but sometimes Survival is the movement. Sometimes just not breaking is revolutionary, and now, it's your turn. Yeah, you. What would you have done in Haley's shoes? Would you have kept walking when they tore your shirt in front of everybody? Would you have fought back? Or would you have just stood there, frozen, like so many others did that day? You tell me. Comment below. I'm not saying it just to say it. We read every single one. And I want to hear from you. Because the truth is, these stories don't live in courtrooms or classrooms or TikToks or headlines. They live in us. In the choices we make when nobody's watching. In the things we let slide. In the voices we choose to believe or ignore. And maybe, just maybe, the next Haley is watching you. So tell me, did the school finally get what it deserved? Or do you think Haley went too far? Be honest, because silence has cost too much already. And if you think this story was wild, wait till you hear about the girl who uncovered her teacher's secret affair and how it ended in blood on the classroom floor. Yeah, that one? That story will leave you shaking. Click right here. Go on. I'll meet you there.